I wish you could see my screen right now because I don't know what's going on. I've got 3 intros playing. I've got 2 thumbnails that have just appeared out of nowhere. I don't know. Are we live anyway? Can someone nod their head if we are? Oh my life! I'm going to screen record that if I can and go back and see what that looks like. Anyway, we are live. Welcome back to All for United WFC. We're obviously going to be talking about the Manchester derby and the one each draw. There's plenty to discuss there. Obviously, the FA Cup draw is on now, so you're going to hear some live reaction to that. Hopefully, they get on with it in the next kind of few minutes because I don't want this dragging out over the entire show. So yeah, we're going to talk FA Cup and things like that, and obviously discuss the Manchester derby as well. I've got 2 people that were there, Charlie and Jess. I believe you were both there. Charlie in the away end, Jess near it, I hope, or as close to as possible. So we'll get into some talk about the atmosphere and all things like that, and obviously me and Barry watching at home, so on as well. I'll stick the player of the match poll in as well, so make sure you get all your comments and thoughts and all on that. You can hear me kind of waffling a little bit because I'm hoping they get on with the draw, which they haven't yet. Right, I'll come to each of you then. First on, who do you want in the draw? Is there anyone particular or anyone that you want to avoid, actually? Is there anyone that you want to get or want to avoid? I'll throw that to all of you.
I would like to avoid a rainy night in Durham, to be honest. I wouldn't mind if we drew them at home, actually. I'd like to play them at home. I think we turn them over. I have a feeling we're going to draw one of the big guns, because I feel like that always happens. Probably Everton. We get them often. But I'd quite like to play one of the sides from lower down the leagues, actually. I think I mentioned #United earlier. Quite like to play them. They've got a decent following, haven't they? So that would be quite good.
Jess, for yourself, is there anyone that you want to get or you'd like to see United face? That's the good thing about the FA Cup, isn't it? We could play anybody in this.
I think it would be pretty cool playing a team from a lower league. Also be good for them as well. But I think with our luck, chances are we're going to draw against like a top side, which, isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world because we've got to be able to beat these teams. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, a home game would be ideal, definitely.
Yeah, as Ian said there, Barry, you're going to have to be my kind of co-host alongside this because I hope that comment's up. I clicked it about 2 minutes ago. Ian's saying,
don't know.
I can read it. I just didn't know whether it was on the screen or not because on mine I've got nothing. Ian
wants a home try. I presume by that he means like Manchester or Lee, not down south. But yeah, I've got this horrible feeling. I'd quite like #. I think that would be quite nice to see a lower down team like that come up. But as I said before, my oracle is telling me that we're going to draw number 15, which would be Peterborough or Durham.
Not Durham, surely. That's the one we don't want, isn't it? City, Chelsea, Arsenal, or Durham.
So because it's the one we don't want, that'll be the one we'll get.
Is it in the FA Cup? Is it right? Like, is there a competition where there's some rule where the lower league side just gets to play at home? Is that just like a Conti Cup type thing? I feel like we always play Durham away and we always play.
I feel like it does seem that way, but I don't know whether it's actually a rule or whether that's just how it falls, if it's luck or what. But I know what you mean because it does seem to fall that way.
So Manchester City have been drew out. This is turning into what I didn't particularly want it to be, which is a watch along for now. So there we are. We'll just keep an eye on this because they have actually started. They're doing it a lot quicker than I thought. So City, Sheffield. So we're not getting City. So that's something.
They're not even using one of those things that they can have a look into. It is just a bag.
Straight into a bag, but it is a sort of a velvety bag.
It is.
So that's I think. I'm just glad we've not got City, to be honest. Chelsea's the other one. I was speaking to Rob earlier, and I was just like, Chelsea's the other team that you just want to avoid. And we're not going to get # either.
Oh, that's a shame.
# away at Coventry United. That's a good game. That's a good tie for them, I think.
That'll be a good game. That'll be an interesting watch, that one.
Oh, and Emma, welcome to the comments. I've brought your comment up again. If it's come up or not. Emma obviously was on last Friday previewing the City game, big City fan. So make sure you follow her if you haven't already. Very good fan over there. So who we got now? Arsenal versus Leeds or Stoke? Yeah. Standard.
Well, when you say it's standard, that's standard in terms of the men's game. It's not really standard in terms of the women's game, is it? Because neither Leeds nor Stoke are in the top. So
well, it's a good tie for the lower teams, isn't it? That's when you're looking at the Oh, here we go. Feds or West Brom. This is the draw that I want. I don't know. I should know, shouldn't I? But who is? Okay, so
Connor was like, we'll ask questions during, but we're all just like looking.
At it's because I was looking to see. It's because I was seeing to see who West Brom had got, but West Brom had got Brighton. So,
Peterborough and Durham.
If this is United, we're just going to log off and end it right now.
I'm going to be sacked, don't I?
I don't know what number 27. I don't think that's his number. Yeah, Crystal Palace.
Pretty sure the day after Durham beat us in the Conti, not the day after Durham beat us in the Conti Cup again, they got absolutely battered 6-0 by some minnow in the Championship. Doesn't make any sense.
Indeed. All these, there's so many teams up like far away. I know I'm not near Manchester, so it's a little bit different, but there's so many teams in the northern side, isn't there? It's not too many on that.
It's so funny how they're doing this, how they're both having to hold one.
Yeah, both holding the bag.
Oh, we've got away to Blackburn or Sunderland.
Interesting, I'll take that.
What does anyone know what tier they are? Blackburn and Sunderland. They're not the tier. I'm going to say that
Sunderland are higher up than Blackburn, I think.
I was thinking like 4.
I think they're 4. And Sarah, it's like a watch along. Funny, Barry put this idea to me and Charlie this morning, and I was almost dead against it. I was like, "No, we're not doing that." Here we are.
I wonder if whoever it is would play it at the Stadium of Light or Ewood Park. You wonder, don't you? That would help us out.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Emma, they're both in the Championship.
Are they?
Yes, they are.
Oh,
look at us demoting them to Tier 4 Sunday League.
Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, if there is anyone watching from those two clubs, I do apologise. Emma, look forward to hearing your thoughts on the game. And likewise, Emma, I'm intrigued to know what you thought of the game as well, because I think United fans are pretty split on the game as well. Chelsea, Liverpool. I'm not going to keep an eye on the rest of them because I don't really care who gets who now because the big three are out. Let's go around then. How's everyone feeling about that? Blackburn or Sunderland should win that, right? Is there any? I mean, saying that, we've lost to a Championship side already this season on penalties.
It's nice playing someone new. Often in the women's game, you end up having lots of the games against the same teams all the time, don't you? So at least it's something a bit different. Like it was nice playing Bridgewater, wasn't it? It was nice going somewhere different against.
Yeah, I think because the sort of pool's smaller, you do find that you're playing the same teams all the time. So it is nice to mix it up. And like I said before, it's good for those teams as well to kind of come up against teams like United, and it just gives everyone a chance to play a different team.
Do you reckon we'll take? You know, with it being the FA Cup, I'm already thinking about what the lineup will be there, just going forwards. With us being out of the Conti Cup, you go stronger, don't you? Surely.
I mean, you'd hope you go stronger, but against lower teams, you're thinking we're still sort of hoping for that top 3. I think it's just finding the balance, but we should have a good enough squad depth really to not worry too much, even if we did put out a kind of not typical starting 11, let's say. Yeah, hope that we would still kind of fairly easily walk it, really. Although I say this and look at what happened in the Conti Cup, so I'd better not speak.
Is the FA Cup the sort of thing where you'd like we said, you'd hope to get past that either of those two sides, wouldn't you, with some fresh legs and stuff? But if you get further into the competition, you'd expect them to strengthen up.
Yeah, I think that's when you start looking at strengthening up the team. That's when you start sort of playing your starting 11, really.
See, I don't know that I'd want that. I would want them to go out strong because, yes, it's all very well and good talking about finishing top 3. But I think winning an A Cup would be a statement in itself. So
absolutely. I think it would be huge for us. And I think we really need a good cup run as well. You know, the Conti Cup's done with kind of well out of that. So it would be good to have a decent cup run. And it's good for like morale and everything else as well. It's good for the whole kind of background, like behind the scenes thing at United as well. And then you can kind of hope that you can use that sort of good play, good win to then drive the rest of your season forward.
Well, that's a question I've actually got for all of you, actually tying it into the City game a little bit. Obviously, after the result of the weekend, We're looking we're looking comfortable. We're not quite halfway through the season, but obviously we got the break coming up after the Sheffield game. But is a cup run a priority with where we are in the league? Obviously, we went on a decent one last year in the Conti Cup. Obviously, unfortunately, faced City in the FA Cup last season and got beat there. Would you? I know you've both been talking there a little bit about the kind of squad you'd like to see. Is a cup run as important when we're in the position that we're in the league? I'm going to caveat that by saying last season we were in a similar position as well in the league. Obviously, it dropped off towards the back end of the season. Starting with yourself, Charlie, how would you approach the FA Cup now? Is it as big of a priority with the fact that City don't look as good as saying that they've lost less games to the start of this season than they did last? Is it as much of a priority, or how are you looking at it?
I know you said we were in a similar position last year, but with a lot less points. I think we need to point that out. I think Chelsea and Arsenal are much further ahead at this point than they were last time. I think obviously Champions League has to be the priority, but it's not like the women's fixture list is overrun with fixtures at United's level. I know lower down the league, lower down the tiers, they seem to have a lot more games, but it's not for us. If you take out the ridiculous international breaks that we're always having. So I think there's the scope to make an effort with it. I think you have to. Because imagine if we just threw that away and then something went wrong in the league. I think it would be remiss to sort of turn your nose up at the FA Cup. Because I think there's an opportunity there, particularly with Arsenal and Chelsea are going to go further in the Champions League by the looks of things because they're doing really well in that. So yeah, I would certainly put some emphasis on it. I wouldn't play it down at all.
Yeah, just for yourself, you kind of echo Charlie's statement.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think at the end of the day, like you were sort of saying, there's no reason why we can't go for both. It's not a ridiculous amount of games. You know, we're not looking at kind of playing in 4 different cups or anything like that. We've got essentially 2 things to focus on. You've got the league and then you've got the FA Cup. It's not really a lot, to be fair. So I don't see why with our squad depth we can't kind of just go out for both. Just because we put out a good side for an FA Cup game doesn't mean we then can't put out a good side for a league game and vice versa. The players now are fully professional and have been for a few years now. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be going for both, and it shouldn't be a case of one or the other.
Yeah, and Barry, for yourself, I mean, Ellie's coming in with a Barry comment there, talking about winning the league. But how do you see it?
Well, we are going to win the league. I mean, I've been very clear about this from the start. I still don't see what you've seen or heard that makes you think you can change your mind on that one. We've had ourselves a really good season so far. We've played exceptionally well. We've kept pace with the people at the top. And this draw has only helped us, to be honest with you. It really has. So, I don't feel too negative about any. I think we have got to be going to win this league, though, and we have got to be trying to win this cup. It was Man City that put us out last year. Let's not forget that. I think it's quite important that we now push ourselves forward, have a good go at it, Tom Blackburn and Sunderland, and really try. Really, really try. I know we talk a lot about squad rotation. For me, I just want us to put our best team out every single match. As Charlie says, there's not that many matches that we're really, struggling with. I think even with a good cup run, we're not even going to hit the amount of games that you would play in a Premier League season. So, for me, when you consider that in that sphere, you also have the Premier League, potentially Champions League matches, FA Cup, League Cup, all those sorts of things. I don't think we're in that position where we really need to make changes just for the sake of making changes and keeping people happy. We've just got to go out there, best team every single time, and put an assault on it. And that's what I think.
No, I tend to agree with that. I think I would bring your comment up, Sang, but I can't because right now I'm looking at a black screen, so I don't even know if you guys can hear me or not because I can't see anything. So,
the draw was really good for you.
I think so. I've got the YouTube thing on my phone, so I can see the comments coming in because right now I can't see anything on my laptop. Am I going? What's going? I can hear you still. I don't know. I'm just going to ask the next question because there's pointless me trying to ramble on. Let's go to the game then. That's why everyone is here and clicking on the video talking about the game. We'll do the usual, go around the house. What's your initial reaction? There was a little bit of, not anger, but there was a little bit of disappointment yesterday, I think is probably the right word, after only getting a draw. Charlie, how do you see it now, almost over 24 hours on? Are you disappointed we didn't get a win? How are you feeling on
it? Yeah, I feel like we should have gone in at half time more than 1-0 up. I think we had the much better of the opportunity in the first 5 minutes were a little bit shaky, I think, but then after that we were well on top for the first half. It just felt a bit like the final ball wasn't quite good enough or wasn't being anticipated as well as it perhaps had been when we played Arsenal and when we played Villa. But City were offering more than those two sides were. So when you're playing a team that's putting up more of a fight, it is obviously more difficult. I felt like first half we should have been maybe 2 up when we went in at half time. And then City changed things and they got stuck in more. Their press worked much better in the second half. We found it really difficult to build from the back. It was quite slow and ponderous at times. Not for any reason other than City were pressing well and making it difficult. And then we had a couple of opportunities quite near the end. One with Martha Thomas, when it sort of was a really good reactive save from Roebuck. She just sort of made herself big and it hit her. And then Garcia's, which I refuse to watch the highlight of that back because I'll say to the day I die that was a handball off the snake. I'm glad that Leah Galton megsed her as well for that goal. No, I'm joking. Alex Greenwood's all right. Lioness. But yeah, it felt like it's good. It's right that it's disappointing, isn't it? Like, whereas last season we're like, oh, if we go here and get a draw, that's really good. And now it's like, no, we want to go there and beat them. And you could see that's what the players felt as well at the end. They looked disappointed. So there was that mentality shift. But we just weren't quite clinical enough when it mattered, I don't think.
It's interesting. I remember stood next to you at the academy ground earlier this year, wasn't it? And we were saying if we can get a point out of this, we're fully taking that. And now we're sat here 1 each going,
I remember that game. Like I said to you, we're going to know within 2 minutes how this is going to go. This was last season and we looked at each other like, oh, shit. Because we knew how it was going to go. Whereas we do look like a completely different animal. And if we'd just taken one of those chances, like we kept Bunny Shaw fairly quiet. No other team has managed that. We kept her fairly quiet and she is humongous. I don't know if you noticed that.
Oh my God, I'm glad you said it. It's all, as I was watching the game, it was one of the only things I could think about. I was sat there with like family and some friends and I could not believe how big she is. Yeah. And it's not like she's big and she's slow or anything like that. She is rapid. Yeah. She's about 6 foot tall. She's solid. She is rapid. And I was thinking, if I was City towards the end, I'd have just been firing in ball after ball and just aiming for her head. Yeah. And essentially that is what they ended up doing. But in terms of like an athlete, she is incredible. I could not believe just how like physically strong and fast she was. She's really, really impressive. I'm not surprised that she's the top scorer.
Do you know what? If obviously we hope she doesn't, but if Russo was not to sign a contract, I'd flipping go all out there to get her. If there was a bit as well where she was battling Zellum for the ball. He's not tiny. And she nearly killed her.
Yeah.
Did you see that bit? Zellum was just like just on the floor, not moving, and she's not one for staying down.
No, and it was the same with May Letizia. They were battling. Obviously, May was defending against her in the second half, and I was behind that goal. And I mean, May just looked tiny in comparison. I don't know how tall she actually is, but she just looked tiny. And she did incredibly well to go up against her and for the most part win her sort of battles. But yeah, I really could not believe how big she was.
Well, in the last couple of games, we've played the league's 2 top scorers and kept them relatively quiet. So I'm sure that's something we're going to get on to when we talk about the defence a little bit. But Barry, what's your kind of thoughts on the game? What were you thinking after it? Were you disappointed with a draw? Were you happy with a point? How do you kind of feel again?
I was not too disappointed, actually. No, I think this was a game that we went into where the key was not to lose. I think had we lost to City, it put us in not a great position, really, because it would have meant we'd have ended the year on the same amount of points as them. As the table turned out, we would have ended up 6 points behind Chelsea, and everything would just seem miles away. As it is, Chelsea are the only team to beat us, having played the top three now. 2 of those games were away from home, and those 2 that were away from home, we were undefeated in. We didn't lose. It was, ironically enough, just the one at Lee that we lost. So I thought it was crucial mentally to be coming out of the Christmas break with the knowledge that we were still 3 points clear of City, still clear in that top 3 hunt. And they've all still got to play each other, you know. They've still got to play each other. There's going to be points being taken off of them. And if we can carry on performing that we are, taking points off the top 3, avoiding defeat where possible, I really do believe that's how you end up with your title challenge, because that's what we weren't doing last year. You posted that stat that Charlie definitely said about, how we were dropping points against Everton, we were dropping points against Spurs. We're not doing that. We're not dropping the points now. We're picking them up. So when you posted earlier, points dropped or a point gained, that is 100% a point gain. That was as good as a win for us, because it's kept that distance with City. And this time last year, we wouldn't have done that. So I'm all over it. Doesn't mean I'm happy with how that goal went in, because that was one of the things we said on the fans on the preview that we did. You cannot have a defensive mishap. And for me, that was a defensive mishap. And, it's a shame. But for me, I think Maya was sort of lost in no man's land for that one. Millie had gone off. Honor was trying to get back as well. And we just got caught out, just napped slightly at the back there. And that was a shame. But yeah, for me, that's a point gained. 100% that's a point gained. We can be happy with that.
I know we might get onto this in more detail. Barry, you're just talking about the goal we conceded. I feel like that's where we've got a bit of an issue in how that goal was conceded, because I think we've conceded 3 goals against each of those top 3 sides where someone has not tracked that late runner up heading towards the back post. So it was Lauren James against Chelsea, and we were all shouting, Lauren James is coming, Lauren James is coming. It was, is it Weinrotter or Wienrotter? I don't want to pronounce it incorrectly, but I probably just butchered it there. But it was against Arsenal then, and then it was Coombs against City. Yeah. So there's either a lapse in concentration or a miscommunication, but that's happened 3 games out of 4. That same sort of thing.
I think the thing with that goal, though, Charlie, is that the ball bounced. It's not like it was a cross that went straight to her head. It bounced, and she literally just goes, bop. It was the easiest unmarked header in the world. And I don't know, in my head, I sort of put it down to the fact that we've all given Maya a lot of praise, and rightly so, because she has been absolutely outstanding. But maybe a more experienced centre-back might have been in that position and not caught out. And I think that was the thing. She was... You see it in the highlights, it repeats it. She's just sort of floundered, really. She's been caught out, and it happens. Those balls come across so quick. Once you've been caught out, you've been caught out. There's no getting away with it. That's the level that we're at. It was solid apart from that, but just that one mistake, that's all it takes.
I want to come back to the goal in a little bit. I just want to stick on the conversation because there's a lot of talk about this kind of point gain, 2 points lost kind of thing. I actually really agree with this comment. I don't know when it's going to come up, but I'm going to read it out anyway. Points drop for the league, point gain for top 3. I think that is bang on, actually. I think if you're going for the title, Chelsea probably win that. And, they have already. So, they win those types of games. Whereas for top 3, keeping the gap to City, that's kind of how I look at it anyway. I don't think we've got enough to challenge Chelsea in the course of the season, but that's something for another show anyway. But this kind of whole and you read the stats out there in terms of where we are, and Charlie, you definitely did say it. It was somebody that said it anyway. I tweeted it crediting you anyway. But you're looking at the games that we had last season, the games that we've already played: Arsenal, City, West Ham, Everton, and Leicester away. We'd only picked up 6 this season. We've already picked up 13 from those games alone. So there's definitely the improvement there. But whether it's quick enough, I guess, for some people, and whether I think the disappointment for me comes from not the fact that it's a draw, it's the fact that they were there for the taking. I think before the game you go, yeah, take a point away at City at the Etihad, but they weren't great. City weren't a great side, and they're not they're not as good anyway, I don't think. And I think that's when you've got to win those types of games. We did it against Arsenal. Arsenal weren't at the best. We went and beat them. I think that's the kind of level we're striving for. But I don't know. Has anyone else got any more comments on this before we look at the kind of goals in more detail in terms of?
I'd agree with that. If you'd have sort of said to me before the game, like, "Oh, would you take a draw at the Etihad, like obviously away?" I'd probably say, "Yeah, that's great. We'll take that." But then you watch the game, and like you say, they were there for the taking. If we'd have just been a little bit more clinical up front, and if we'd have just sort of kept a little bit more compact for that one moment, and it wasn't even a brilliant cross from Chloe Kelly. Like she's got a very good cross on her, and recently she's really, really in form. Same with Lauren Hemp. But our sort of wide players just kept them quiet all game. But we make one mistake, one sort of lapse in concentration. And that's it. And that's the difference between when we play a sort of a lower team and when we play like a top three side. And we saw it against the games, again, like you were saying before, against Chelsea. You cannot afford to make mistakes like that. Not in that area of the pitch. You can't afford to have a loose ball and City players unmarked because they're just going to capitalise on that. So I think in the end, we come out disappointed because we know that we could have done better. And it's kind of it's only down to our mistakes that we didn't get 3 points, basically.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. Oh, go on.
Well, you can agree with it, but I'm still not there with that. Chelsea have still got to play Arsenal twice. I don't believe they're going to win both those games, even if they draw them. The opportunities are there. So I entirely disagree. Let's not forget Chelsea lost to Liverpool. They lost to Liverpool. There are going to be teams around there that are going to nick points off of these other teams. And at the moment, we're doing the right stuff. We are beating the teams that are below us. And we're competing with the top three. I don't think we can be too doubted about that result. I really, really don't, because it's keeping us good for the top three, but we're not miles off it. We're not miles off it, and that's why we're still going to win it.
No, that's fair enough. You're welcome to have that view, and you may be the one laughing when we get. Well, to be fair, we'll all be sat here laughing if we win the league. I'll tell you that.
I'll be laughing if we win the league or
not, mate. I have put the player of the match poll in the chat. I've just checked my phone to make sure it has gone in. It has. So we've gone for Honor, Leah, Mary, or Hannah for this one. I don't know why I didn't just the surnames there, but there we are. So yeah, make sure you get your votes in on that. We've already had nearly 20 votes already, and Leah is way out in front. So we might see a kind of one-horse race in this one. But yeah, make sure you get your votes in on that. Make sure you like the video and subscribe as well while you're here. Let's look at our goal first then, before we look at... I know we covered it a little bit already, but before we look at City's goal, let's talk about ours. Great bit of play again. It's coming from out wide again. Most of our goals this season are coming from very similar types of goals like that. Charlie, talk to us about that goal and what you saw of it, because I know obviously the Etihad's quite a big ground, but it's completely the other end of the pitch. I know you've obviously probably watched it back and things like that, but just talk to us about that goal and how good Leah's been. Not just this game, but this season as a whole as well.
Yeah, it was a really good build-up. I think it was like 15 or 16 passes before she slotted it through Alex Greenwood's legs. It was a really good goal. I think she received it and then she cut inside, and that's something that Mark Skinner was talking about in his post-match press conference, about how they know she's really good when she's out wide, but actually she can do quite a lot of damage when she cuts inside and comes a bit more central. And we saw that time yesterday where Galton was playing as the number 9 at times across that front three, but she did really well, and she was doing that a lot yesterday. She was receiving the ball and she was cutting inside and just skipping past Man City defenders. I think a couple of them put tentative tackles in but got nowhere near her. Played it off really nicely to Ella Toon and then continued her run. So really positive run forward. It was really nice as well, one sort of one-touch passing in the build-up as well, which clearly is something they've worked on, which makes us harder to defend against. But again, a really well taken goal. one quick touch, and then I think it was the outside of the boot that she hit it with, a bit like against Arsenal, outside of the boot. But really, really good build up all round. And she's so good. I feel like this is the best. I think we say it every year about Galton that this is her best season. This is her best season. But I think she's been incredible. I think Slater talks about all these forwards we've bought, and she is the one that has stayed year on year. And it just feels like she's getting better. And I think you can see the benefits of the work they've done with her and the work she has put into sort of mixing her game up as well, because that goal came from her cutting inside rather than sticking out wide and carrying on that positive run. But it was a really, really good goal. From where we were, I'm not quite sure where Jess was exactly compared to us, but the perspective was horrible because you were like pretty much behind a goal, so you can't fully see what's happening. So it was kind of waiting to see what the reaction was behind. I think there was some United fans scattered around. But yeah, brilliantly taking goal from her.
Yeah, I mean, Jess, would you echo that? Because there was obviously some talk about Galton at the start of last season when Skinner first came in that she wasn't quite right for the way that Skinner was playing, but she's definitely adapted her way of playing. And, she's scoring goals, pretty much every other game now, I think. So, again, what was your kind of view of the goal when you were there? And just talk to me about Leah Galton. How good was she?
I mean, I thought she was incredible. And I think the link-up play, like we were saying, to actually make that goal, the passing between her and Tooney was just insane, to be honest. I feel like I didn't quite fully appreciate it while I was watching. But when I saw the highlights earlier and actually saw not just the passing, but their movements off of each other, I think generally going forward, we're looking really good this season going forward because our forward players are playing with a lot of sort of fluidity. So it's really difficult for defenders to mark because we're just all over the place, basically. But you can tell our forward players have a really good connection because someone will sort of move out wide and the wide player will move inside and it goes across the whole front. So kind of like I've seen it with Tooney, Zellum, Galton, Russo, all the forward players basically can just rotate and move in and out of space. And that is incredibly hard for defenders to mark. And if you look at the goal, the link-up play between sort of Tooney and Galton, that's sort of what happens. Leah Galton comes inside, Tooney pulls out wide, and then just basically slots the ball, and we just slice their defence apart. I was, as per usual, in completely the wrong end, sat on the opposite to the away end. So I had a pretty good view, to be fair. But I was one of the United fans that got up and started screaming when the ball went in, and then thought, better sit down maybe. So I did get a decent view, to be fair, but I thought it was just such a really, really well worked goal. And it does go to show the work that Skinner and just in general the whole team have put in to kind of work through the attacking phases of play. It's really good to see.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I did see you can see it on the highlights. There was quite a lot of United fans behind that goal or in and around that section that was celebrating. It certainly wasn't. I don't know what was the official attendance? 44, wasn't it, in the end?
Yeah, I could see a lot of United fans around me, and when I got up and shouted, there were quite a lot of other shouts all around.
See, there we go. We take over wherever.
Yeah, basically.
Bloody words out now. You know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we're infiltrating everywhere.
Lanzar saying Galton's top 3 wingers in the league with Wrighton and Hemp. I don't think many would disagree with that. Well, I certainly wouldn't anyway. Barry, what do you think of Leah's performance and obviously the goal? Because it's her cutting inside, and as Jess was saying, it's a nightmare for defenders. That kind of interchange with our attackers and the way that they go forward as almost like 5 players now.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. She, obviously through the middle. It was a lovely little ball in from Toon as well. She did well coming in from the left-hand side there, pops the ball in. Bit lucky with a deflection, I suppose, but you make your own luck in football. Great shot. Did you know? I could be entirely wrong because I'm going off of what the commentator says here, not anything else. But she's our top goal scorer in the WSL. So even though you've got your likes of Ella Toon, Katie Zellum, who've scored bucketfuls, she's our top goal scorer in the WSL.
Of all time? Yeah, you're talking about since we've been promoted, yeah?
Well, that's the only time we've been in the WSL that I'm aware of.
I didn't know whether you're on about... Yes, all right. I didn't know whether you're on about this season or what... yes.
She might be this season as well. She might be... Yeah.
I think she is, because she's on 4 now, isn't she? I think.
Yeah,
I think who else?
Russo's on 4 as well. But yeah, I believe it's the all-time WSL top goal scorer, which is quite something, to be fair. And when you think about where Toon and Zelen were with us in the championship, I would say a fair whack of their goals probably came during that period too. So if that's the case, it just goes to show just how important Leah Galton actually is. And she's so, I don't want to say undervalued, but so undermentioned. You know, you go back to the beginning of the season, we were speaking so much about, you know, Paris, about Leon, Garcia, all these players that were coming in, and Russo as well. But Galton just showed her worth again. It was a really good goal, really good effort, really good finish. And yeah, delighted.
No, 100%. I agree with Lanzel's points as well. You know, talking about Keats, top 3 hosts, which could get injured. Yeah, I agree with that as well. I agree with you, Barry, to what you're saying. You know, when we did that show, it was the two of us, Charlie and Shane, when we did where are our signings going to fit in. Galton was the one that we all stuck out on the left. That was the one that we all said fully agreed on. I think that was, apart from Russo and maybe Honor, everyone else we were kind of looking at going, oh, where could they fit in everyone else? So yeah, I think she is certainly performing, and it just shows as well. You don't have to be a Lioness International to be a quality player, because not gonna lie, I'm getting a bit sick of. I'm going on a rant of my own here. Just sick of everything being advertised as Lioness is this, Lioness is that. No, it's the Manchester Derby. It's not all come watch your Lioness players. No, it's a Manchester Derby. Treated as that.
Yeah, that's my choice, because 100%, I think she would be in that conversation.
Yeah, her and Hemp on the left-hand side would be quite something, wouldn't it? That would be, that would be quite something. We've talked about it a little bit. We've talked about it a lot, actually, but I just want to cover the City goal a little bit in terms of the question I had written down. I think, Charlie, you kind of stole it, actually, when what you said earlier about the goal, that we've conceded 3 like this now against the top 3, or the hardest teams that we're going to play in the WSL. That we're conceding similar types of goals like this. We're not picking the runners up. Obviously, Millie goes to head it first. She mistimes the header, or mistimes the jump anyway. Goes over her. Maya's lost the player, and it's just like Barry said. It's really poor the fact that it's bounced before. That should not be happening. You're taught from a young age. You clear it. You don't let it bounce in and around the box. So are you a little bit worried, Charlie, that we're seeing repeated mistakes? But I will just caveat that by saying we are, statistically, do have the second best defensive record in the league, so we can't be doing that bad defensively. But is it just these fine margins in these games that's a little bit concerning?
Yeah, that's the difference, though, isn't it? That's the difference. Against Arsenal, we pulled it back around and we ended up winning. So you kind of forget about the fact that it happened. But it was, you can look at the back line. So you could talk about, well, you know, Hannah lets the cross go in, even though I think she was brilliant. Millie misses it. Maya runs to pick up Bunny Shaw, and then Coombs is unmarked. But I think they shouldn't let it bounce. But there's also got to be some emphasis on, like, Coombs isn't an attacker, is she? She's a midfielder. She's a midfielder, right? Yeah. So she's run from midfield. So someone's got to be tracking that as well, I would say. I wouldn't. Yes, there were some schoolgirl errors from the back line of letting it bounce and not timely jump right, but someone's got to be tracking her, I think. So meeting, because obviously we were doubling up on Bunny Shaw. That was the plan, wasn't it? It was working. So it meant we would be a player light if someone else was entering the box and no one was tracking Coombs. I think someone's got to follow her into the box, because Honor's trying to deal with Lauren Hemp at the back post, and then you can see at the last second she tries to react, but it's too late by that point. But I think someone needs to be tracking her, as well as the defenders dealing better with the aerial ball into the box. So it's a couple of things. But you're right. It's whereas before we'd say, oh, we won't even try, and we were just sitting and we weren't trying to win the game. We're trying to win the game, and that means that at times you're going to be a little bit exposed, and it's making sure you minimise how often that happens. And unfortunately, because of the quality, I know people say an average City side, they're full of internationals. I don't like City, but I think that's sort of dumbing them down a bit too much. That seems a bit bonkers. You make those mistakes and they'll capitalise. Like, people will say the same things about us. Don't make a mistake against Man United, they'll capitalise. It's the same with City. So it's about trying to cut those errors out as much as you can.
it's interesting because everyone was playing City down before the game, and even after we dropped points, like people were acting like we dropped points to Leicester or something like that. It was crazy. It's like you forget how good. Yes, City have lost a lot of key players, but their squad is still really good. It's not a bad squad by any means. So yeah, it's a tough. I'm just watching the goal back now. Like you said, there's errors all over. Turner clears it. Tooney's not quick enough out to. I can't see who the player is, but then it gets played out wide. Ham's got to stop the cross. Millie mistimes it. Maya, gets dragged in. Honours can't get to Coombs quick enough. But to be fair, even if she does, that ball's going over her anyway. And Hemp's on the far side. So either way, that was going in. But yeah, Jess, have you got anything to add on the City goal? How do we stop that? What do we need to change? It'll be a slight change, if anything, to stop these types of goals happening.
I think that one, it's difficult because it was just like a catalogue of mistakes. I mean, my first thought was, obviously, like I say, I was sat kind of basically in front of this, like that goal as it was happening. My first thought was that the cross shouldn't have come in. Chloe Kelly was so close to the line that I don't think the cross should have come in to begin with, but it did. But then you think, right, fine, we've got Millie Turner there to head it away. No, we don't. She's missed it. And then I think potentially it should have been maybe Hayley Ladd dropping in to help defend. Honor, like we say, was caught out wide. Maya was sort of in no man's land. But I saw a stat a little bit earlier today. I can't remember exactly where it was, but it was basically, I did write it down. It basically said that we're yet to concede in the first half for like the last 9 games or something like that. So I think something we need to actually consider is what we're doing in the second half. So I don't know if part of the reason is, or something I've kind of noticed, some of our last games, especially against the sort of top 3 sides, our work rate has been insane, like insanely high. And I think I sort of noticed it towards the end of the game. Players like Galton were starting to flag a little bit. That's no sort of disrespect on her or how she was playing, because she was incredible. But you get to the point where you can't keep running at that same level. And the reason we're kind of doing so well against these top 3 sides is because we are pressing, we are pushing, we're wanting to score goals. So we're pushing and pushing and pushing. And the sort of cost of that is that we're potentially getting a bit tired. And I think that's where these mistakes are coming in. And potentially that's why we've seen similar mistakes against Chelsea, Arsenal and City now, because they are silly things and it's just little lapses in concentration. And maybe it is, the runners in midfield just can't quite get back quick enough, or they're not reading the play, not realising the danger. And just sort of not having a breather, but essentially just needing to kind of take it easy, and they haven't got the kind of energy to keep dropping back in. So that's potentially something that needs kind of looking at. That although it is great pressing the ball all game, one of the downsides of that is that you're going to fatigue a lot quicker. But we are scoring, and I think the way we are playing is a huge improvement over last season, definitely. It's just these little defensive kind of mistakes that we've got to kind of put to bed, basically.
Charlie, you've got a rival stat person there coming up with a stat. Like, I don't think I'd have found that one.
I found it on Twitter earlier while I was scrolling. I'm not even sure who it was from, so I'm sorry whoever I just nicked that tweet from.
It's a good stat. Can I just jump in there? Like, it doesn't just talk about how hard our team worked this year off the ball as well as on the ball. Like, you see how many recoveries we make in the opposition half. It's massive compared to where we were before. And it doesn't negate the errors. It doesn't mean, what I'm about to say would excuse making the errors. But again, you work that hard against Brighton or Reading and you're 4-0 up at half time. If you're working that hard against City, like I said, we should have been more than 1 goal up at half time. We should have been. And unfortunately, we weren't. And then if you are tiring, like Jess is saying, you're more susceptible to dropping points and not being far enough ahead. I'm sure, we might talk about subs later. I think they were
it is a question I've got written down.
Yeah, that maybe needs to happen sooner, because Leah was brilliant, but I was looking at her on like 70, 75 minutes and she was like, huh. And it looked like when Russo came off, she looked ready to go, Galton. She looked like, this is me. This is my time. And then it wasn't. It was fine because she did 2 brilliant runs again later on and nearly created something. But I think perhaps we could have done more with our bench, because we got a bit ragged at times near the end.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that because Lanzell's just put a comment in about it, and Amy's just put a comment as well saying need subs earlier. I have got a question on the subs because I think that's a talking point as well. The fact there was only 2. Again, we looked a bit leggy and they were very late on. But Barry, I want you to have your kind of final say on the goal as well. There's a couple of other bits of chat as well. Emma, I'm intrigued to know, just while Barry's giving his little talk on the City goal, whether you thought that United deserved to be more than 1 up at half time. Because obviously we're all United fans saying, yep, we should have been more than 1 up. I'm just intrigued to know from a City fan, if you are still watching, whether you think that, whether it felt like that from your point of view, that you were that much under pressure, it should have been more than 1. But Barry, your kind of thought on the goal, again, same question I kind of asked Charlie, really. Are you a little bit worried that against the top 3 we just have these small little lapses, or do you think that can be easily ironed out?
Well, no, because that's why they're the top 3, Connor. They're the top because they're good and they've got the ability to do that in any match against any defence. So no, would be the short answer to that. I think the key one for me was what Sang actually put, which was communication. I think I've watched it back whilst you lot have been chatting again, and the cross itself probably shouldn't have come in. Maya actually had Bunny Shaw. She was man marking on that respect for that cross. It was Millie who was actually in front. The thing was that Bunny went towards Millie, when Maya then looks a little bit lost. Honor's obviously tried to get back, but it's that noticing that actually it's all happening, and it's really easy for us because we watch it back 4 or 5 times and just go, well, that's where it went wrong, and we forget the fact that all of that happened in about 4 seconds, and they had no chance to react to it at the time. So I think that's the tricky bit. There's part of me that just wonders, I'm very much on the fence. I'm stuck between loving the defence and everything they've been doing so far because it's been working, and I wouldn't advocate making changes for that particular reason. But then there is part of me that wonders, would we Car or somebody like that, what would they offer? Would there be something different in terms of the communication? Because Maya's not naturally a centre-back. She's always been a right-back, and we're playing her in that position. So that just sort of niggles at the back of my head. But that's all it really is a niggle, because I've been banging this drum now since we started. The team we're playing is working and working hard. And, let's not forget, we're sitting here talking about a goal that was scored after 58 minutes. Yes, it was a mistake. It shouldn't have happened, but it did. And it will happen. And it will happen again. And that will happen again because, look at the City goal, United goal. Do you not think the City fans are sitting there going, oh, we should have got in there in front of Toon before she got the cross in? Galton never should have been allowed to get on her own, because she was on her own to have that shot at the first place. If that had just hit her left foot rather than her right foot, it might have gone out for a corner instead of a goal. That's the game. It's fine margins. That's what top level sport is all about. So, yes, it's the only bit for me that was disappointing was the goal. Could we have been more ahead? Absolutely. We were a better side in the first half. I believe that. If Emma was here, she would tell you that too. But no, I don't think I'm sat here. I'm just not feeling negative about it. I'm not even close about feeling negative about it. I think it was a cracking match, a cracking game. It's a good us, and it's more progression. And that's all we can hope for as a football club. Just because I'm sitting here saying we might win the league, it's progression. And that's all that's literally the holy grail, is to progress each time. Let's be clear, even if we don't win the league, if we finish third, that's progression. It's great. And then we go on and try again and try again. That's how it works.
No, I'd agree with that. And it's interesting you say that in terms of, if City dissect our goal. And that's why I always make the point on these shows that every goal you ever score is going to be a mistake from somebody somewhere in a phase of play. It has to, otherwise it will never go in. There has to be some error from somebody. So I get that point.
Complete brilliance.
But even then, you could argue that there would have been a mistake to allow that person on the ball to score that brilliant goal.
Well, it depends, doesn't it? If Mary Earps wallops a ball up to Erlatoon and it goes straight to her and she just turns and wallops another one in, is it always a mistake? Not always. I've got to give just pure brilliance and go, do you know what? That was unstoppable. I don't think either of the sides would look at that goal there and go, there wasn't something that could have been done to stop it.
No, I agree with that point. But yeah, I think you could dissect most goals. I personally think anyway, and put it back to an error of some kind. I said you've got about 5 minutes or so to vote on the poll if you haven't already. I can't see it, so Charlie's going to be doing this one and reading out the percentages when they come back around. I don't know. Is Leah still out in front, Charlie?
Oh, it's ridiculous. It's what I'd call a landslide.
Okay. So we'll keep an eye on that.
One. I hate it when people say that. I was literally on a plate. No, it wasn't. It was not.
Also, Emma's put a comment and saying we were disappointed in the first half and United deserved to be up at the break, but that we were poor throughout. It's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that's the general consensus, isn't it? The City fans are kind of quite happy that we didn't get further in front, and we're a little bit disappointed that we didn't put more points.
But so are the players, and so is the manager. Like that's a mentality shift, isn't it? Like there was a lot of bluster last year where we sort of, we want to get at these, and then we didn't really because we couldn't, and now it seemed genuine.
I think that is really good to see though, and it shows the growth of the club. And I think that can only be actually seen as a positive. The fact that we're not happy really with the draw. Last season that would have been fantastic. We'd have been thrilled with that, but I think it's good that we're not happy with that and we want more, because that's what's going to keep driving us forward, and that's what's going to help us improve in the long run. And it's great that we can look back at the game and we can see clear things that we can improve on, because hopefully we can then use that to progress forward. And whether it be this season, next season, we've got a clear kind of path of growth, and we're now seeing improvements and rapid improvements as well compared to last season. I think the thing that we keep mentioning is the mentality shift, and I think that is huge. That cannot be understated how important it is to have that kind of like winning mentality. And that is what seems to be sort of driving us forward through these games, in comparison to sort of last season.
You could see it at the end as well, like from the players when they came over, and like from Garcia, who was wanting that handball to be given. She was absolutely livid about that, and she was still going. You could see her gesticulating, like to Mark Skinner, to Martin Ho, to anyone that would listen, how cross they were about that because they just wanted to win that game. And that's the difference. And I quite like as well that we've clearly brought some of those characters in.
Like it's good. I like that. I think in the women's game in general, sometimes it's like not a lack of passion, but there's a lack of kind of wanting to stand up and sort of have a bit of a shout. And I'm not saying, we want to be kicking off at the ref all the time, but it is good to have that kind of passion and to have people that, are going to argue a case for you basically, and are going to be passionate for the team and sort of push everyone else to be better.
No, it's hard to find a disagreement with that, and also that one as well. We lose both this and the Arsenal. I think we do. At the very least, we probably lose this one and draw Arsenal. I think. I don't think we get the win in the draw. Again, as Barry said, progression. It might not be quick enough for some people. It might not be as big for some people, but it is literal progression on last season. That's all we can do. Ultimately, we'll be judged at the end of the season. We could be sat here at the end of the season in fourth, and we're all going to be like, hang on a minute, that's not progression. Now we need to start questioning things. But as it stands at the moment, we are progressing as a team. There's been a lot of chat about subs and things like that, so I just wanted to briefly get onto that because Charlie, you mentioned it, and Jess, you've mentioned it. The players looked a little bit tired going, and it's not a surprise. If you're running on that big size pitch, we had the Old Trafford game as well. We've had the game at the Emirates, much bigger pitches than we used to, and it does make those few yards do make a difference, especially in the games that we've had. The high intensity, as you said, we're pressing or trying to press a lot of the time and things like that. What would you have done, Charlie, in terms of the subs? Because there's been, I know Lanzel's, you're very vocal on this as well, so I'm intrigued to see what you've got to say on this. That we brought a lot of players in. It doesn't seem that we're using them too much in these types of games where we're a little bit leggy towards the end. Do you think there's any that we can look anything into that, Charlie, or do you think that it is just? I don't know. I don't have the answer myself. I really don't. But
I mean, you're not going to change a defender for a defender at that point, are you? I think that's ridiculous. That would be ridiculous. Tunkara's not going to come on, and it's not the game for Rachel Williams. As much as I love her, it's not the game for her. And Leon's ill all the time. It just keeps being that I don't know. Leon's ill. She's got a cold, or she's got this, that, and the other. So it's a little bit unreliable at the moment. The one for me was Garcia. I think maybe needed to come on sooner. I'm a big fan of Nikita Paris, but I don't think she filled herself with glory against Man City. And all players will have that. They will have games where they don't perform. to their usual high standards. So I would have brought her on sooner. I think they tried to. I feel like she was on the touchline for 5 minutes trying to come on, but the ball didn't go out of play. But I maybe would have brought her on nearer to the hour mark. Obviously, it's Mark's decision, not mine. But I feel like when she came on, it upped the tempo. She really pressed with intent. She was the one that nearly scored at the end. And she harried and she won the ball back at times. And I think that's what we needed before there being sort of 6 or 7 minutes to go, because we were tiring, but City were tiring at the back as well. We had run their backline ragged at times, and they were a little bit all over the place. And we know that Ellie Roebuck is a bit of a flappy Ansky. She likes flapping at things. So I would have perhaps made that change. I've no issues with Martha Thomas coming on. I think every game she's come into, she's made a massive difference. And again, she had a really good opportunity, but it's Garcia for me. I perhaps would have gone for that change sooner. Because things just weren't quite coming off for Keats, I think, from build-up play, but also to sort of anticipating the through ball or the ball over the top from Russo. She wasn't quite at the races. So it was that change I was expecting to be quicker.
Jess, do you echo that? There's a lot of comments about, in particular, Garcia. A couple of people mentioned Bo Risa as well, Thomas as well. Do you think they should have been earlier? And were you happy with the subs that actually came on, or do you think it was a timing thing that was a problem?
So I was happy with Martha Thomas. I thought that was right sub, and like you say, she came on. I think within her first couple of touches, she created a chance or had a chance herself. I would have brought Garcia on sooner, but I remember being sort of sat there. And I could just see our sort of front three really starting to flag. And that was, I guess, probably around the hour to 70-minute mark. And I do think we need to be making those subs sooner. I understand that we have our starting 11. We rely on those players. But there comes a point where they are not playing effectively anymore. And bringing someone else on with fresh legs, just simply having someone with fresh legs can make a huge difference. You know, you're playing against a tiring defence. Like I mentioned before, our front players are playing with such a fluidity. It is really hard for defenders to keep track, and it is tiring for them because they're trying to keep up with our forward players. And we've got some good, quick players. So if we can just make an earlier sub, for me, it would have been bring Garcia on a little bit sooner and just let her run at them. And carry on with that kind of quick passing. I think we slowed the ball down a little bit too much towards the end. But yeah, I definitely would have brought Garcia on sooner.
I think that's the thing with this, isn't it? Again, I think we're all kind of agreed. Everyone in the comments seems to agree as well. That again, right subs just about 10, 15 minutes, maybe too late, I think, on this one. And I agree with what Amy's just put there. It's not come up on my screen. I'm just going to hope it does. Talking about Bo Risa, love Bo Risa, but if you swap for two, you're risking defensively. I agree with that. I just think, Charlie, you mentioned Leon. What's happened to her? She was out with a minor thing, and she's out with 2 illnesses all of a sudden over the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, what's happened? What's happening there? I'm not saying there's anything more to it, but that's a little bit frustrating, I guess, because she would be another ideal one that you'd bring on in that type of game, someone that can run it.
She's someone I was actually stood thinking, should we look to be bringing her on? I didn't actually know that she had any kind of illness or anything, but she was someone that was on my mind as, right, what subs can. I was thinking about who we could bring on that could make an impact, and it was sort of her and Garcia that was sort of in my mind of who you can bring on.
Well, that's when you're looking at the bench. You've got Bagley there. You've got Bo Risa, Garcia, Moore, Staniforth, Thomas, Torres Dottier, Tunkara, and Williams. 75% of those you're not going to bring on, really, unless you really have to. So you're only looking at Garcia and Thomas and Bo Risa, really, to come on. But yeah, I think before we get to some of these comments, Barry, what's your thoughts on it? Do you think it was right subs, wrong time? Do you think it was wrong subs, right time? How do you think it was?
Well, listen, I've got to be honest. I didn't see the times of the subs. I was trying to watch 2 matches at one time at that particular point, so that was very difficult to do. So I can't say that I caught the
72 and 84.
72 and 8. Do you know what time we made the substitutions when we won the Champions League final in 99?
I don't think they're comparable, I've got to be honest.
I think they are.
Two completely different types of games.
Because I'll tell you why they are, Connor. It was 67 and 81, just so you know. Because all I'm seeing in the comments is it should be done on 60 minutes or 75 minutes, or it should be done on 72 minutes and 29 seconds. The time doesn't matter. It genuinely doesn't. It's the effect and the impact it's going to have on the game. These people that think you can just analyse a game by going, if we do it at a certain time frame, I'm sorry, it's just I don't agree with that in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and I'm not convinced there's two people within the game that genuinely do believe that it's the time, as in a specific time. You have to do it on 60. It's not to say they shouldn't have been earlier, because deep down they probably could have been. It does give them more time to be more influential in the game and to get the opportunity to do more in there. I just think, you know, it's a silly thing to say, really, because it's what we're sat here to do. But it's the armchair analyst sort of thing that we're doing there, and it's actually understanding that the people that run these football clubs, they actually do, you know, practice, and it's like a job. They get paid for it. There's certain levels they have to have passed and certain things they have to have done. If it was the right substitutions, could they have had more time? Yes, they could. The last bit I saw of the game was Garcia nearly there, poking the ball home, but then there was a bit of a drama going on in the penalty area. If that goes in, we're not having this conversation. Are we? We're not. Nobody's going to be sitting there going, "Oh, yeah, they definitely should have been." So it's all a victim of circumstance. It really is. So do I think they needed to be earlier? Maybe. Do I think we're going a little bit overboard with it? Maybe. Do I think that Mark Skinner always gets his substitutes right? No. But we've had that discussion before. But then in the same way that the defence is going to make mistakes, the same way the defence are going to make mistakes, in the same way the strikers are going to make mistakes, so will the management team. And they might not make a change, but there'll be a reason for it. You know, he's not going to be sat there going, I'm not bringing them on because I desperately want to draw this game. You know, it was on the knife edge. It was 1-1. And he's very much in a situation where he's thinking, how can we affect this game? Can the players that we've got on there still make an impact? Let's be clear, Alessia Russo doesn't have to be at her fighting fit best to get herself up above the defence and head a ball in the back of the net. We know that she can do that. So, yeah, I don't subscribe to it quite so much. I think Garcia gets that goal at the end. We're not having this conversation.
No, agreed. But I do disagree that you need more than 5 minutes to make an impact, because it takes you a couple of minutes just to get up to the speed of the game because of
that's what it's going to
Again, but you're taking one moment out of millions of football games that have ever happened.
Not one moment, mate. He scored 4 goals against Nottingham Forest when he came on for the last 9 minutes of that game. Having been told just have a little run about, Ollie. No, boss, I'm going to score 4. Some players are built differently. That's what I'm saying.
Well, that's why he's one of the greatest. Not that, well, some people wouldn't tell you that, but certainly in my eyes, he was anyway. But yeah, I think just looking through a lot of the comments, the general consensus is that it should have been about 10 minutes earlier. And I think if you're looking at the balance of the game, I think that's why people are saying 60-minute mark, purely because that's when we started to tire. In particular, you know, there was a lot of talk, why is he taking Russo off? To be honest, Russo looked knackered. That's why she came off, because she looked absolutely shattered. Now, yes, there's certain players that you leave on because they can get you a goal. They can do things that other players can't when they're tired. But when you're playing a game like that, I feel like you need intensity sometimes more than talent. You know, you see it sometimes in, you know, it's why you see kind of giant killings in the FA Cup, because the other team works harder than the other. You know, that it's just how football goes sometimes. But I take your point, Barry, that management do make mistakes as well as players. You know, it's a collective. That's why you have a full team of people there. So would it have affected it? It might not have. We might have lost. We might have brought the subs on earlier and conceded. You know, we did. So it's a tough one. It's hindsight. We're looking back, but that's why we do these shows, so we can look back and analyse things like that. And subs just happen to be a part of it.
Well, then, any thoughts on this point then? Because if that's true...
Which point? I can't say.
But to be fair, someone said to me Taylor made one sub, Raso, 85 minutes, I think.
Yeah, it was. It was for Kelly, wasn't it? 85.
So they only made one sub.
But, again...
We're on about us. We're on about us making
subs. We are. But my point is, sat there at City going, oh, we should have brought Raso on 20 minutes earlier. We might have...
But did they look as tired as we did?
People are allowed to think that it should have been sooner. I think it should have been sooner because our players were tiring. I'm not thinking about what City want their subs to do. I'm thinking about our players were clearly tiring And I felt, my opinion was, it might have been beneficial to bring a sub on sooner. That's what I think. Well, we come on here to see what we think.
I've got no problems with it. Should have been sooner. It's when we get 60 minutes, 70 minutes, 75 minutes. You do it when you think it should be a change.
I don't think there's a definitive time. I think you look. I personally don't know what was on the clock when I was chatting to my friends and I was saying I think they need to make some subs. I think so and so looks tired. Whatever. I have no clue what time was actually on the clock. I was just looking at the game, and I was seeing like Galton and Russo looked absolutely gassed. And that was just all. That was my comment, because they'd been sort of. I could see them not on a decline, but they were slowing down, and they weren't being as effective as they had been previously. But I mean, you don't know. You could leave them on, and they might. It only takes one moment of magic. You could leave them on, and they're going to score. But you know, for me personally, I probably would have made some changes once I'd seen them starting to tire, because in my head I was thinking, do you know what? We're probably more likely going to get a more positive result with fresh legs rather than sort of hoping for players that maybe are technically better, just producing a bit of magic.
And yeah, that's the key, isn't it? I agree with Amy's point. Gareth Taylor's not someone you want to aspire to. No, I would not swap our managers.
He's just finished third, didn't he?
With a better squad, you'd argue. I would argue that.
You know, we have so many, and I just think we need to just all calm down and realise Manchester City is bloody amazing for the stage of the journey we're at. We'll smash them at Argath.
Well, I hope you're right on that one. But
and I'm going to put in a little request, and he's going to make the subs on the 30-minute mark, just so people can say it was nice and early.
But again, if there's an injury at that point, yes, make it. You've got to. It depends on the game. I don't think you can put a time on it. It depends what's happening in the game.
That's all I'm saying.
But in this case, it should have been 60 because it was 10 minutes before the first sub. And that's when we started to look tired. I
preface all this by saying I had no idea what time the subs were made or what was going on. I was concentrating elsewhere. My point was just on you don't put a time on it. It depends on the game. And I've not sat here and said we should or we shouldn't, because I can't offer as much insight into that last 20 minutes as I would like to. But yeah, you don't put a time on it. That's all I'm saying.
No, I think that's agreed. I think most of the people in the comments would agree. But certainly in yesterday's game, it should have been about 10. About 10. People will have their own. Some people will say half time. It's up to what you saw at the time. And yeah, I agree with the comment I've just read about Gareth Taylor running players out of the club. Yeah, that's one for Emma, I think, on Gareth Taylor. Let's go to player of the match then before we look to wrap this one up. Charlie, I'm going to have to come to you last because I can't see the poll.
I can't see it anymore. See it anymore. But I would assume Galton's won because she was so far ahead.
I can't see it either. If anyone can see the poll, can somebody let us know what the percentages are? Because I cannot see it anymore. While Barry's looking for that, because I think he is. Charlie, who was yours? Who did you vote for, and who do you think was your player of the match yesterday?
I'm expecting Galton to win, so I went against the grain, and I am one of what was 10 minutes ago the 6% that voted for Hannah Blundell. I think she's gone under the radar a little bit this season. I think she's had a really, really good season. I think she was driving a lot of our attacks. She was really good. What I find interesting about what they seem to be doing with her is she's also cutting in quite a lot with regards to her attacks. It's less of the overlaps with Leah. That side seems to cut in quite a lot, her included. And then she seems to sit in the middle quite a lot after that's happened, as almost like an extra person in the middle of the park to help win the ball back and drive the play forward. I thought she was brilliant against Man City. Perhaps the only sticking bit was maybe shouldn't have let that cross in for the goal. But there was all sorts of things going on there. But I thought she was colossal yesterday. I think I turned around to a couple of people at certain points and said that she's been amazing. I was really impressed with her. Her work rate is phenomenal. She's a bit like Honor in the sense that she doesn't seem to ever get tired. She just keeps going. She had to work really hard to keep Chloe Kelly quiet for much of the game, because Chloe Kelly is a quick player, but also very technically gifted with the ball at her feet. So it must be difficult to defend against. And I thought Hannah Blundell was brilliant for that. And I fully expected everyone to go for Galton. Like we'd go around and it's like Galton. So I thought we saw about someone different. She was brilliant.
I see. Mine's not going to be Galton.
I've got the answers if you want them.
Go for it.
I had the answers. There we go. So, bottom of the pile, Hannah Blundell, 5%. In third place, Mary Epps, 8%. And then just behind the top one with 24% was Honor. Leah got 63% of the vote, which is who I went for as well.
That's fair enough. Well, clearly people agree with you for 63%. Jess, was yours Galton? Who did you go for?
Yeah, I went with Galton. At first, I was going to go for Honor, but I went with Honor last week, so I thought I'd change it up a bit. It turns out I'm turning into a bit of an Honor fangirl, I have to say, because I thought she was insane again at the weekend. In fact, her and Blundell, I thought they both did ridiculously well to basically keep Chloe Kelly and Lauren Hemp pretty much out of the game. Those are two very, very informed players at the minute. So to keep them pretty much totally quiet is really good. But yeah, I went for Galton. I thought her work rate, obviously for the goal, really, really well worked for the goal, but I thought her work rate for the whole game was really, really good. And it's just fantastic to see how well she's kind of improving as well.
No, fair comments. Yeah, I went for Honor purely because I just think, again, just the best player on the pitch. I just think she's that good at the moment. I don't think, you look at everything else around her. Again, she kept the wingers quiet. For me, Honor, but I can see why everyone went for Leah. For me, Leah's just getting, I think, Charlie, you might have tweeted it actually, and I know you said it definitely earlier in the show, that she just seems to be getting better at the moment. And again, she could be on for another one of her best seasons. It seems like we say that every year for Leah. She's having one of her best seasons. This could be another one for her as well if she continues on the way she's going. But yeah, I agree with I think, to be honest, anyone on that poll could have won it. You look at Blundell's performance, Mary Earps as well. We've not even mentioned the saves that she got, that she did, that kind of kept us in it, I guess, at times as well. So there's a couple of key saves in there for her. So yeah, plenty of shouts for player of the match this week. But yes, we'll go with a consensus and Leah on that one. Right then, well, we shall wrap it up there. We'll be back on when we have the Sheffield game's going ahead now, isn't it? So we'll be back on Wednesday regardless. Barry's going to dive into a little bit more of specific topics. I'm sure. We don't know what the topic's going to be yet, unless Barry's got one, which we'll talk about afterwards. But so Barry will be back at Wednesday at 7:00, and then after that, I don't know when we'll be back after that, with the Sheffield game now going ahead. So there'll be a show at some point later this week, so keep an eye out for that. Make sure you're liking the video and subscribing. I don't know how many subs we're on now, but we're getting closer by the day. So make sure you're doing that. I'm hoping Barry's going to do the outro for me because my laptop will not be able to handle it. So yeah, make sure you're doing all those. Make sure you're following these three, and we shall see you in the next one.
We will be pushing the outro in about